Hi, this is the Montgomery ISD special board meeting on October 26, 2020 at 6 p.m. So we're going to call the meeting to order. If everybody will stand up so that we can say the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one indivisible. Okay, so at this point, we do have some public comments to the board. What I would ask is that each person limit their comments to 5 minutes so that we can make sure that we get everybody in. We do not, we can't comment back from the board whether we agree with you or not. So it's just part of the thing. It would be a violation of the Public Open Meetings Act if we did. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and call Shelby Smith up to the board, up to the podium, please.
Hi guys, good evening.
Hey Shelby.
I just wanted to take a minute to thank a couple of people for the opportunity to be part of the interview process for the new police chief. I wanted to thank Dr. Morrison and Dr. Lopez and Mr. Morris for asking me to be part of this committee. It was a first for me. The HR side of things I've always been real interested in, but I thought about, as a principal, I don't hire people alone. I always invite teachers, depending on the environment that we're hiring for, maybe office staff, and I felt that it was really neat to be able to be a part of that team. We had admin from all levels on that committee. I represented elementary. We had secondary, both junior high and high school principals in there. Mr. Morris was in there. Chris Lynn was in there. So we also had some senior leadership teams. And then we were honestly very privileged to meet Chief Alan Bragg, who is a retired school district police chief, who not only has started a department and led it very successfully, but also had great experience in another district, both of those being very large districts. So we felt like where there may have been questions that we have that could not have been answered by any of us because we're principals, he really had some great experience that we could lean on. So like any interview process, we had the team effort, but I loved that we were presented with really some amazing candidates. I would say that everybody on paper was very qualified. I was amazed to look at the different walks of life that they came from. Not all were local, really. There were some local, but really from other parts of the state. And at one point, I told Mr. Morris, I'm going to go rogue, and I'm going to ask, how in the world did you hear about this job? And what he shared was that there were just different outlets that had been putting out the message, and I guess just maybe different ways in HR searches. They were sharing that information across the state. So it was neat to see the different walks of life that these people came from too, but then the different areas that they came from. There were some that were school district police force. There were some that also had local authority experience. And so I thought that was neat that we had a wide variety of that. When you're in the interviewing process, I think a lot of people can look great on paper. Qualification and experience speak volumes. But to me as a principal, and even in this process, I think we all look for maybe that passion and that fit. I feel like as a principal, you can teach people to teach. We have amazing coaches here. We have tremendous resources, but you can't teach the it factor that I like to call it, which is just that passion for people and leading others and a servant's heart and really leading by doing and just, never asking someone to do something that you're not willing to do yourself. And we had some really qualified candidates that had that it factor that I like to call it. I will say that while we felt confident in multiple candidates, there was one that we unanimously felt emerged above the rest. Really was just wow, that would be an amazing fit here. We know the police officers that we work with here, and we felt like they would be responsive. And then on the campus level, I felt like that is somebody that I could look to who was responsible for the safety and security and leading that department of our most precious resources here, and would really be confident in the way I felt that this person would lead that department, but then also for me to lean on in a moment, because in a moment of crisis, you really kind of go to your basics, and mine's not going to be safety and security as much as it's going to be what I know about school. And so we felt very, very confident in that. And so I just really was thankful for the opportunity. I felt it was a very unique and privileged opportunity to have, and am hopeful for our future with a candidate. So thank you. Thank y'all.
Thank you. Next up, we're going to have Catherine Bartlett.
Hi there, and I think that and hope that you know me or would at least recognize me. I'm Catherine Bartlett. I'm the principal at Lone Star. This is my 8th year to be principal there. Prior to that, I was an administrator in Cy-Fair. I was there for 15 years as an administrator. I had 8 years principal experience and 7 years AP experience. So I have a little bit of background with fast growth and a lot of the hurdles that we've just started to face and have faced in just the last few years. So after those 15 years, then it was great to have the privilege to serve where I live in Montgomery. And one of the ways I just served was being a part of an interview panel for Director of Communication. And so I'm going to talk, just like Shelby did, on the process of that. And there was an initial screening done by our Human Resource Department and Central Administration. They went through all of the applicants, picked out the top 8, and we had a committee of central office. We had 4 people in there. We had senior leadership team and 3 principals, 2 elementary principals, 1 secondary principal. And we all had a binder with 25 questions in there, about 25. It was a lot of questions. We had so much information about each person. Behind each tab, we had their application, we had any reference materials. We were able to ask some follow-up questions if we needed to. We had time at the end of each person's interview after they left to have a little chat and talk about things that we really liked, things we appreciated, things we were looking for. We turned the binders in at the end with everybody choosing their top 3. We all agreed on the top 3 that we sent back to Dr. Morrison, and they were very different and they were all very strong. It was a pleasure to be a part of that. And I will tell you that being on that, I have been asked several times about the timing of this position, and I want to tell you that I think it's not that it's a good time or a bad time. It is well past time for us to have this position in our district. I can't find another district our size that has 2 major departments run by 1 person. So I feel like we've just always needed this separation since I've been here, so that it's more than just what we can do now, which is sharing positive events and good news, and that's all very important. We need a systemic, unified approach to the delivery of information and to the building of relationships with our local community, our local area, our region, and our state. And I think that's what this is going to give us. We've had to push out the majority of communication within our district from the principals, and so that's great. We all communicate, but we do it very differently. So some of us will do it on a weekly basis, some bi-weekly, some are on Twitter, some are PTA newsletters, all of that. We have a lot of different approach, and I think sometimes our big message gets watered down that way, and so what we're missing is the unification. The last thing that I say this all the time, but a nugget of wisdom I got from a conference on building your school mission was the very best choir can sing the same song, but not at the same time, and then it sounds terrible. And so sometimes I think we're all singing the same song and we're doing it our way, but it's not coming across as strong as it can when it comes from one person supporting all of us. I'll tell you as a principal, I think we're all excited to have that one person support us, and we're super excited to be able to have Sonia support us in HR and not have to try to balance both plates. So I appreciate your time, and thank you so much.
Thank you. Next up to the podium, Lori Turner.
Good evening, Board of Trustees, Dr. Morrison, and the senior administrative team. I'm Laurie Turner, and I'm coming to you tonight as a parent of 2 students in the district, the wife of a law enforcement officer, and a former employee of MISD. I want to start by saying that I've been very impressed in the last few months with the changes that Dr. Morrison and Chris Lynn have made in our district in regards to transparency and communication to the community. I was also impressed with the process the board went through in order to get input from the community regarding the hiring of a new superintendent. Most of the comments I'm about to make are in regards to incidences that happened before both Dr. Morrison and Chris Lynn came to our district. I have been concerned about the training, integrity, and qualifications of our MISD Police Department for a few years now. I have also been concerned about the turnover rate of our police officers. In the last 18 months, I have seen an unbelievable amount of officers leave or be let go of, and it has been noticed by the public. I have spoken to officers that have left the MISD department that felt harassed and even took their concerns to the previous superintendent, only for it to get worse. I have seen I have seen 2 of our officers in the news after they were terminated due to their involvement in domestic violence cases. I have heard the recording of the previous chief of police as he told a parent that he was detained for raising his voice and using foul language when the parent had come into the police station on his own to get an update on a report and he was not being helped. I watch every morning as the officers get to their posts late to direct traffic or direct improperly or use improper equipment. I have spoken to a 32-year veteran of the Houston Police Department who, after retiring, came and interviewed in MISD and ended up in Conroe ISD. His explanation of the background check and vetting process of MISD police was appalling. He was offered a job in MISD as a part-time officer before being fingerprinted and was told that he would have to get a psychological evaluation that he would have to pay for. Before getting a job as a full-time officer in Conroe ISD, he has had to do the following: fill out the application, a background investigation was done on him, the investigator went to the HPD headquarters to pull his personnel file, he had to do a urinalysis drug test, he was given a polygraph, he was given a psych evaluation with 500 questions, was fingerprinted 2 times, once for the education side of it and once for the police department. Once hired, he went through a month of field training where he was expected to learn the education code, general orders, and standard operating procedures. He was also trained in extremely detailed reporting. In 1 year, he has taken over 438 hours of TCOL training. TCOL stands for the Texas Commissions of Law Enforcement. All of his instructors were TCOL instructor certified. Remember that the person that I'm telling you about that had to go through all of this is a 32-year veteran of the Houston Police Department, and he was hired as just an officer, not a supervisor. Why am I telling you this? I am hoping that all of you fully understand where we have been and will take this fantastic opportunity to take our MISD Police Department in a new direction. The police department needs to become a department that not only we are proud of, but also that we can depend on and trust to keep our children and employees safe. Whether it be keeping drugs out of our schools, being ready for a dangerous person entering the building, keeping our traffic moving safely in the morning, or whatever else, this department needs to be ready and trained for it. If you are able to find the right chief to take on this department and decide to keep the department in-house, please consider restructuring and rethinking every part of the department. The vetting and hiring of officers and their training. Please make updates to our department's general orders and the standard operating procedures. Make sure that all the officers know these inside and out and are following them. Please consider reaching out to officers at other departments that live in our district and have children in our district so that they can help identify the weaknesses that they have seen in order to make our department better. Please take this chance to do this right and keep our children safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up to the podium, Amy Jones.
I'm not sure I want to follow her. Good evening. I would like to address the hiring of a police chief as well. I believe you should always hire the best qualified person for the job. So if you need to go outside of Montgomery, please do so. If the person isn't from Montgomery, have a plan in place for the chief to move to the district in a timely manner. And if a moving stipend is allowed, make sure it gets cut off at an appropriate and agreed upon date, which I'm pretty sure Mr. Lynn will make sure happens. I understand you can't get into the hiring details and hiring practices and salaries, but I would strongly suggest some transparency in this issue. I also hope the candidate is properly vetted and previous experience verified. A chief needs compassion for children and his or her employees, not to show favoritism, to fully support all of his or her staff, not to micromanage their staff, to make sure officers adhere to all the rules. Above all, to make sure the officers who are hired to protect our precious children are equally qualified and trained. I do hope with the new chief, there will be more transparency between MISD police and the community if incidents happen off campus with MISD students, and local authorities will be contacted to sort out any incident or crime, not the MISD police. I'd also like plans for the future adjust. Will MISD be around 24/7, around the clock, or will we, like surrounding districts, or will we have a mixture of the police and a security group to work after hours? So there won't be another drowning of a school or any other incidents on MISD property. Thank you.
Thank you. That was all the public comments that we have for tonight. And we don't have any action items at the beginning of the meeting. So at this point, we're going to go into, the board will go into closed meeting as authorized by the Texas Open Meetings Act to consider and discuss personal matters, including the employment of the chief of police and director of communications. All right, calling the meeting back to order, coming out of closed session. Do I have any motions?
Yeah, Mr. President, I move that we accept the superintendent's recommendation and hire Mr. Stephen Phillips as Montgomery Independent School District Chief of Police and authorize the superintendent to carry out such duties as necessary to effectuate same.
Do I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Me.
Motion passes. Do I have another motion?
I have a second motion. I move that we accept the superintendent's recommendation and hire Justin Marino as Montgomery Independent School District Director of Communications and authorize the superintendent to carry out such duties as necessary to effectuate same.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay, thank you, everyone. Meeting adjourned.